I live in a small town where everyone knows everyone else. My house is across from Mama Efe's. She is a kind woman, always smiling, though life hasn't been easy for her. She lost her husband many years ago and raised her daughter Ada, all on her own. I often watched them from my window, and what I saw always broke my heart. Ada was Mama Efe's only child, her pride and joy. But Ada didn't see her mother the same way. To her, Mama Efe was a source of shame, a poor market woman with rough hands and old clothes. Ada hated everything about her mother, and she didn't hide. I remember one Saturday morning when Ada came home with some of her friends. They were all dressed in the latest fashions, watching and talking loudly. Mama Efe, as usual, greeted them warmly. "My daughter, welcome. Who are these fine young ladies?" she asked, smiling. Ada didn't even look at her. Instead, she rolled her eyes and said, "Just leave us alone, Mama. Go back inside." Her friends giggled, and one of them whispered something I couldn't hear. Ada laughed and said, "That's my mother. She's just embarrassing." Mama Efe's smile faded, but she didn't say anything. She simply nodded and went back inside. Later that day, I saw her sitting outside on a small stool, staring at the sky. She looked so tired, but her lips moved silently, as if she were praying. The worst moment came a few weeks later. Mama Efe, ever caring mother, had prepared lunch for Ada and decided to take it to her school. She wrapped the food carefully in a basket and walked the long distance under the hot sun. When she got to the school, Ada was with a group of her classmates. As soon as she saw her mother, her face darkened. "Mama, what are you doing here?" she shouted. "I brought you lunch, my child. I know you didn't eat this morning," Mama Efe said softly. Ada snatched the basket and threw it on the ground. "I don't need your food. Stop coming to my school and embarrass me." Her classmates laughed loudly. Some pointed at Mama Efe, once dressed and dusted feet. I was told later that one boy even said, "No wonder Ada does not like her. Look at her." Mama Efe picked up the basket quietly and walked away. Her head bowed. That evening, I saw her crying in front of her house. But even then, she whispered, "God, bless my daughter. Protect her despite everything." Mama Efe never stopped loving Ada. She continued to cook her meals, save money to buy her new clothes, and pray for her every night. But Ada rejected every effort. Then one day, everything changed. It was a hot afternoon, and I was sitting outside when I saw a commotion at the market. People were shouting and running towards Mama Efe, who had collapsed while selling her fruits. She had been working non-stop for weeks, ignoring her own health. The news spread quickly, but when someone told Ada, she dismissed it. "She's fine. She just wants attention," she said, laughing with her friends. But Mama Efe wasn't fine. She was taken to the hospital, and the doctor said she had been sick for a long time, but never told anyone. When Ada finally decided to visit her, it was almost too late. I went with her because I couldn't let her face it alone. At the hospital, we find out that Mama Efe lying on a small bed, looking frail and weak. Her own eyes were dim, but when she saw Ada, she smiled. "My daughter, you came," she whispered. Ada didn't say anything at first. She just stood there, staring at her mother. Tears streamed down her face. I am sorry, Mama, Ada finally said, her voice shaking. Mama, I am so sorry for everything I said and I did to you. Mama Efe reached out to trembling hand and touched Ada's face. No matter what, you are my child. I always pray for you to have a good life. I love you, Ada. Those were her last words. Moments later, she closed her eyes and didn't wake up again. Ada cried uncontrollably that day and every day after. She couldn't forgive herself for how she treated her mother. I often saw her sitting outside their house, staring at the sky the way her mother used to. Sometimes love is silent, patient, and enduring. But it didn't take losing someone to realize how much they mean to you. I tell this story because I want people to remember no matter how simple or imperfect someone seems, their love is priceless. And once they are gone, there is no going back. Ada changed after her mother's death. The lively, outspoken girl who once mocked her mother becomes quiet and withdrawn. People in the town whisper about her. Some out of pity, others out of judgment. She finally understands what she lost. One woman said, "It's too late now." Another added, "I often saw Ada sitting by her mother's grave at the small cemetery outside town. She brought flowers every week, sometimes fresh, sometimes withered. She would sit there for hours, talking as if her mother could still hear her. Mama, I wish I could tell you how sorry I am. I didn't see all the things you did for me. I was so blind," she would say. One day, I decided to approach her. She was sitting on the ground, her hands clasped in her lap, staring at the grave. Ada, I gently said, "Your mother loved you so much. She forgave you long before you even realized your mistakes." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I know, but how do I forgive myself? How do I live with what I did?" I thought for a moment before replying. By honoring her, by living a life that would make her proud. Those words seemed to light a spark in Ada. From that day on, she started changing her life. Bit by bit, she stopped hanging out with the friends who used to laugh at her mother. She began to help the elderly in the community, offering to sweep their yard or carry their goods from the market. Things her mother used to do without being asked. One morning, I saw Ada setting up a small fruit stand in front of her house. It was the same spot where Mama Efe used to sell her fruit. Ada had never wanted anything to do with the markets before. But now she worked tirelessly, selling fresh oranges, mangoes, and bananas. This was Mama Efe's life. She told me one day she worked so hard to take care of me. I want to continue what she started. People in the town began to notice the change in Ada. They started buying from her, not just because they needed fruit, but because they admire her efforts to make amends. She's a different person now. One customer said to me, "She's honoring her mother in the best way she can." I replied. One evening, while cleaning out her mother's belongings, Ada found an old envelope tucked inside a Bible. It was addressed to her, written in her mother's careful handwriting. With shaking hands, Ada opened the letter and began to read. "My dearest Ada, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. Please don't cry too much, my child. I want you to know that I love you. with all my heart, even when you pushed me away. I know life was hard for you growing up, and maybe I wasn't the kind of mother you wanted. But I did everything I could to give you the best life I could afford. You were my joy, my hope, and my reasons to keep going. Promise me one thing, Ada, be kind to yourself and to others. Forgive yourself for your mistakes and learn from them. Live a good life, my child. A life filled with love and kindness. That is all I ever wanted for you. With all my love, Mama. I cried as she read the letter. But for the first time, her tears felt different. Not just tears of regret, but also of healing. And that story became a lesson for many in the town. She began sharing her experience with others, especially young people who took their parents for granted. I was blind to my mother's love, she would say. But you don't have to wait until it's too late to see how much your parents do for you. Show them love now while you still can. Through her actions, Ada transformed her pain into something meaningful. She became a symbol of redemption, a reminder that even the deepest wounds can heal with time, effort, and a heart willing to change. As I watch her now standing tall and confident at her fruit stand, I see a girl who has turned her life around. And I know, somewhere up above, Mama Efe is smiling, proud of her daughter she always loved.